Hey everyone, I'm Steve Pellerin, a volunteer director at large with the Vancouver Island Security Research Society. We're getting ready for B-Sides Vancouver Island, our community-driven cybersecurity conference happening Friday, October 25, 2026 at the Victoria Conference Centre. This is our 5th anniversary, and this year we're expanding to 2 talk tracks, which means even more great content for the security community. Today, I'm happy to be joined by Jeff McDonnell, one of our scheduled speakers. Jeff works in data science, security research, and machine learning with a focus on using automation and AI to prevent, detect, and disrupt cyber attacks. He's quite interested in machine learning, reverse engineering, AI safety, vulnerability fuzzing, and apparently foosball. Jeff's talk is titled Fully Autonomous AI Attacks and Worms That Vibe Code Themselves, Update on Where We Are and What to Expect. That title certainly gets your attention. AI is changing how software is written, how security problems are investigated, and how defenders detect and respond to attacks. At the same time, many of those capabilities can be used by attackers as well. In his session, Jeff will look at what fully autonomous attacks can actually do today, what is still theoretical, and what security teams should be preparing for as these systems become more capable. Jeff, welcome to the B-Sides Vancouver Island podcast. It's great to have you with us. Before we get into some of what your talk will cover, could you tell us a little bit about your background and what drew you to the intersection of AI and cybersecurity?
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to come out to B-Sides over there as well. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada, so not too far away. So I'm a security researcher, data scientist, machine learning engineer for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So we build the antivirus software, which comes free for kind of all Windows users around the world. We also build the EDR product. So we also build kind of all the enterprise-grade protections for endpoint device monitoring. So we look for ongoing attacks against enterprises and organizations in order to notify the security operations team of the ongoing attacks against the environment to try to disrupt them and evict them before the damage is done. So I lead our AI and machine learning team. So we develop kind of the machine learning models and big data solutions which protect our customers against all of the attacks for both those products. We do a lot of work in terms of classical machine learning, as well as using agentic and large language model security solutions to protect our customers against these attacks. I'm a security researcher at heart. Started off as a security researcher doing reverse engineering of malware attacks and transitioned into AI as my primary focus area about 8 years ago. And I think the transition to AI was really driven by scaling to the amount of attacks that we see in the world kind of really requires the usage of AI and automation in order to be able to solve the volume of attacks that we see against our customers every day. And since then, I've had a humongous passion for AI. I've been following all the large language model trends since the fairly early days, even pre-ChatGPT. I've been a huge enthusiast of the generative AI models and, of course, its impacts to cybersecurity as well.
Thanks, Jeff. That background really sets the stage for what we're going to talk about today. I think a lot of people hear fully autonomous AI attacks and immediately picture either science fiction or some distant future threat. But you've been working hands-on with these systems, both from the attacker and the defender perspectives. So let's start by separating fact from fiction. Here's my first question. When people hear the phrase fully autonomous AI attacks, what is realistic today and what is still more science fiction than practical threat?
Okay, well, probably a lot of us have been following the news recently. There have been some very famous fully AI orchestrated attacks, which have broken out recently. It started, I think we've had the first high complexity AI orchestrated attacks occurring accidentally now by pretty much most of the frontier labs. So the most famous one is the Hugging Face breach, where Hugging Face declared a pretty massive security incident where they were getting attacked by a swarm of agents. And as we all found out, it was the OpenAI reinforcement learning training for the next generation of the OpenAI models, which had broken out of their cybersecurity testing gym environment and using several zero-day vulnerabilities along the way. And those models got the idea to hack into Hugging Face in order to get the answer key to the exploit gem problem set that they have been trying to solve. And this was, if you look at the postmortem of that attack, it was a high complexity attack. We're talking about multiple stages. We're talking about 0 days discovered. And this is high complexity of an AI orchestrated attacks given just a single mission objective of solve this problem. So I think we've just had the first examples of the high complexity AI orchestrated attacks being fully AI orchestrated. This differentiates itself from the attacks that we've seen earlier, which are AI orchestrated. We had Anthropic, I think it was in September, almost a year ago actually now, where there was a China nation state threat actor, which had been mostly autonomously, or I'd say semi-autonomously, using AI to help them orchestrate attacks against a number of organizations that they've been targeting. And I think they had estimated maybe 80 to 90% operation there, but there was human in the loop at almost every stage of the attack for the previous Anthropic nation state attacks. I think they targeted 30 organizations. They successfully breached about, I think, at least 3 of those organizations, Anthropic stated. But we've been seeing continued progression. And I'm sure like every major nation state out there has AI assisted or fully autonomous AI orchestrated attack research, which is going on as well. And they're very effective at using it. But I think the bigger challenge is when cyber criminals start deliberately doing this to cause damage, either for financial gain, like mass extortion, like enterprise extortion attacks, doing encryption, data exfiltration in order to extort the companies for ransoms. And also when you get into the destructive objectives. Right now, for example, Iran-affiliated actors are trying to hack into the US at scale to cause damage at scale across the economy. They're hacking into the critical infrastructure. There are water plant outages you may have heard of. Iran is deliberately trying to hack into the critical infrastructure of the US in order to cause as much damage as they can right now due to the current geopolitical situation. And there was Iran-affiliated attackers. Probably a lot of us are very familiar with the Stryker attack, where an Iran-affiliated attacker hacked into the US medical supplier company in the US. And they mass carried out a destruction payload across, like they compromised the entire domain. And then I think they carried out data destruction on something like 60,000 endpoints at the exact same time. So it's not always about extortion. A lot of these objectives can be about destruction as well. And we saw the first high complexity at fully AI orchestrated attack accidentally by an OpenAI model without a malicious intent. But we're going to be seeing very soon the high capability attacks with malicious intent. And it's going to be a complete game changer, I think, for the cybersecurity ecosystem. We have cyber criminals running fully AI orchestrated attacks already, cyber criminals, but they're not at the high complexity level yet. About 2 months ago, or maybe about a month and a half ago, was the first documented case of the cyber criminal malicious use of AI orchestrated attacks. It was called the JPuffer. JPuffer was the attack scenario, but it wasn't a high complexity. It was involving 2 devices. The threat actor exploited a server, an internet exposed server in a company using a known vulnerability. They got execution onto the device. They did reconnaissance, elevation privilege. They moved laterally to a second server, which had the SQL database, and they carried out exfiltration, encryption, and dropping of a ransom note, extortion note onto the device. And this was all fully AI orchestrated, given like just an attacker objective. We don't know exactly what the prompt was, but it would be something like, hey, please, on this device, as you get access, I want you to find all their important resources and encrypt all of it and drop this ransom note with, for example.
I would like to dig into that a little bit more. So let's look at the idea that tends to capture people's imaginations. You've certainly captured mine. The AI-powered worm. What would make such an AI-powered worm different from the self-propagating malware that we've seen in the past? You've covered some of this earlier.
Yes. So there are, say, 3 really big problems with AI and cybersecurity. The one which is most talked about was the vulnerability problem. Everyone was like, hey, AI is now able to do amazing work in discovering the vulnerabilities, but not only that, weaponize those vulnerabilities. AI risk in cybersecurity has been in the vulnerability discovery and weaponization. I view that as more of a component of the other two big problems, the much two bigger problems that we have. The one is the AI orchestrated attacks. That is the fundamental big problem. And that is leveraging vulnerabilities that plays a role, but it doesn't necessarily have to involve a role because social engineering is highly effective as well. Now, the second problem, which you're just referring to, is the worm problem, and that's going to transform cybersecurity forever as well. And that was a exactly well-pointed question. What we're seeing right now is we have developers who are authoring worms, classic worms, but more modern formats of them. You have someone vibe coding the worm. This malicious actor has vibe coded it to be scanning the internet. They've created their worm. It scans the internet, and any internet exposed app that is running one of the 20 vulnerabilities that it supports, it then exploits onto that remote device and then copies itself to it and runs it. And then every copy of itself is now scanning the internet for those 20 vulnerabilities. Now, this worm example I'm giving you is a real example. And what it does is it steals large language model provider keys on every device that it infects as well and operates sort of as a botnet that the attacker controls. Now, this is nothing new. This is classic worm, but the author is probably using vibe coding in order to improve it, add new vulnerability support here and there. Now, we're going to get very sharp transition soon. It's a very small change where this worm on every device it infects is actually going to vibe code improvements to itself. So every device it steals large language model credentials for, it is going to use that large language model access in order to start up a harness of vibe coding session to improve itself with something like a prompt like, hey, research the latest vulnerabilities online, look into the latest engineering techniques. Please improve your own code in order to better spread over the internet. And then every one of those infected devices gets onto is going to be trying to improve itself using all those stolen API provider keys that it gets on each one of those devices. So now instead of a slow cadence where you have one threat actor who's iterating on improving it, maybe comes out with an update once per week, you have every one of the infected devices improving itself and vibe coding itself, adding new capabilities. And it gets even more challenging because you have natural selection at play here too, where the most successful copies of itself, which have vibe-coded improvements that help it propagate or stay on the device, preventing removal, is going to be most successful and replicate itself even further. So you have a natural selection favoring the most successful versions of the worm. And this is really just a really small transition off of what we're currently seeing, where developers are vibe coding the worm. They're going to enable the worm to vibe code itself, and it's going to be an enormous transition for the world.
I'm going to stop you there. Let's keep some of this for the talk. But now that you've sufficiently shown the threats laying in the shadows, I'd like to pivot to the good guys. My final question: what should these security teams be doing now to prepare for attacks that can adapt, generate code, operate exponentially?
Yes. So security is going to be going through like a major transition because of the AI orchestrated attacks, especially that we're going to be seeing accelerate. I'm hoping we'll delay the worm problem, but if that emerges, it's an entirely different level. So enterprises, I think, are especially at the highest risk factor for AI and cybersecurity. And we really have to get all of our enterprises into really good security posture. We're quickly coming up the case where we're going to be having bad actors who are using AI agents to scan every enterprise's externally exposed assets and finding ways to exploit and getting execution onto it autonomously. And what defenders need to do is they need to be running these exact same offensive agentic red team agents pen testing all of their own external assets in order to find them and fix them before the attackers do. And this includes not just known vulnerabilities. This goes a lot more beyond just known vulnerabilities. A lot of companies might have custom designed software which is being exposed to the internet. And that is even vulnerable too, because these AI agents have the ability to analyze source code and weaponize it even if it's not a known vulnerability. So that's external posture. Internal posture has to be followed exactly the same way because social engineering works and it's going to continue to work. Attackers are going to get footholds into your internal network, and we need to be able to limit the speed at which they can progress in order to take over the enterprise to carry out their mass encryption, mass data exfiltration, or destruction objectives. So all of your internal security posture in enterprises is everyone needs to immediately begin getting their internal security posture in their organizations in good shape, which is often a really difficult challenge for organizations. And agents are obviously playing a role in that too, not only discovering everything, automatically patching everything, running continuous internal posture, red teaming as well against your real infrastructure, not against subset test networks. It's going to be required to be giving high agency to these pen test agents and trust in them because there's going to be no other way to manage it. And thirdly is going to be the response aspect. SOCs, security response teams, all the teams that are doing all the security patches and et cetera, doesn't really scale to the speed that's needed in order to respond to the speed and scale of attacks we're about to see. These agents, when they breach your network, they run faster than a human operated attack in your organization. Not only that, it can be agent swarms. It's going to be agent swarms which attack your network, like what we had in the Hugging Face case. Single humans and SOC centers who are classically human-oriented can't keep up with the scale and speed of attacks when they are happening against your organization. So you're going to have humans in collaboration with agent fleets, which are needed for the defender response. And those agents are going to have to be given high levels of agency and trust to be able to take out entire devices, disable user accounts, and et cetera. They're going to have to be given high levels of agency in order to be able to succeed in defending your network. Those are, I guess, my three main tips. The future is agents alongside humans.
Jeff, I want to thank you very much for giving us this time and a preview of your talk. You've given us a lot to think about, not just the possibilities of AI-driven attacks, but also the importance of understanding what is real, what's emerging, what the future might hold, and how we as the defenders can prepare. If you'd like to hear Jeff's full session, join us in Victoria. Visit bsidesvi.com to get your tickets. You can also find links to all of our social channels and RSS podcast stream on the website. Follow along, join the conversation, and use hashtag B-Sides-VI in your posts. We'll see you all September 25 in Victoria. Jeff, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Pleasure to be here today.